We are Popcorn, Piss, and Vinegar, giving you a raw take on movies, television, and pop culture. My name's Chris.
I'm Scott.
I am JB4.
And now we are going to talk today about one of the greatest television shows in the history of television, and that is...
Lost?
The Twilight Zone.
Close.
No, not Lost. Twilight Zone, created by Rod Serling. It's amazing how much revival that this show's gone through over the years. It kicked off in 1959 and ran through 1964. It was revived by Steven Spielberg in the form of a movie in 1983, which was very controversial. There was the death of Vic Morrow and two child actors.
Yep.
Yeah, Vic Morrow was actually decapitated by a helicopter that had crashed during a filming scene, and the other two children were cut in half. I mean, very grisly, and still controversial to this day. A lot of people believe that the segment director, who was John Landis, who's popular for movies like Trading Places, Coming to America, Blues Brothers, and had his breakout directorial debut with Animal House. There's a lot of people that still to this day say that he should have been criminally prosecuted for the scene on the Twilight Zone.
Well, he was warned. I mean, he was warned by the set techs that what he was doing was not advised. Right.
So based on that movie, there was another revival that came to CBS that was lasted for 4 years. Surprisingly, it went from 85 to.
There were some good episodes in that.
There absolutely was. Then there was another revival that came in 1999 to 2000. It only lasted one season. It was on UPN, and the Rod Serling host was replaced by Forrest Whitaker.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I do.
He was in that revival, but it only lasted one season. It wasn't very well received. And now here with 2019, who's, I mean, basically red hot as a frying pan right now, is Jordan Peele. So he's come back with his revival of the Twilight Zone, which is only accessible through CBS All Access, another streaming service, that's going to try to capitalize on premium content. So anyway, the agreement before we did this episode was that we were going to try to watch at least the first 2 episodes. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to access the second episode in enough time. I did watch the first one. So why don't we start out and review that one real quick?
Okay.
Just to break down a little bit of plot here, there's a comedian, and that's the name of the episode is The Comedian. It's about a guy named Samir, who's a stand-up comedian. He is trying to be a very kind of truthful, political kind of comedian. And how's that jaw working? Working good? Yep.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear that crunching like a motherfucker.
Crunching that ice, yeah.
Anyway, sorry, just breaking balls. So Samir wants to be a political comedian, but he's not connecting with his audience. So he's advised by a character who's played by Tracy Morgan that he needs to connect with his audience in order to become wildly successful, but warns him and says that if you connect with your audience too much, your act belongs to them.
Correct.
So in typical Twilight Zone fashion, Samir starts joking about things that are personal, and as he jokes about those things, they actually start warping away from existence, from his dog all the way to his fiance's mentor, to his nephew. I mean, it's crazy how it progresses.
He ends up killing people.
Yeah, he's
not killing people forcibly, but as the show progresses, he talks about his fiance's her mentor.
Yeah, her mentor. Yeah.
People from college, people from high school.
Right, and he's basically, this is his version of the Infinity Gauntlet. He kind of has the Thanos snap just by talking about people. It's like they never existed.
He disappears them, yeah.
Right, and the wife, and talking about the wife's mentor, to go into that a little bit, his wife, when he's or his fiance or girlfriend, it's never, I think it's his fiance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The way it's explained in the beginning is he's a starving kind of artist, working comedian, and she's a very successful attorney. Well, when he goes through the process of joking by the attorney about the mentor attorney, who he obviously has friction with, and he's got some jealousy issues with, when he erases that colleague from his fiance's workplace or from the existence, she's now nothing more than a short order waitress.
Yes, because he was never there to mentor her to begin with.
Correct.
Which is the thing that actually makes me like this Twilight Zone more than just a regular, they were written out of his existence because of his jokes. His jokes actually have consequences, which they in shows like this, because this seemed very familiar to me when I saw it. A story that we've seen before where...
I predicted the ending in the first 10 minutes of the show.
It's a Wonderful Life is what it is.
Yeah. But the difference is a lot of those are safe shows where they don't actually delve into how far down the rabbit hole it can go. When you get rid of a mentor, it literally reboots her and changes her dynamic, which changes their dynamic, which changes everything.
Scott is married to a teacher, by the way, listeners, just so you know.
What does that have to do with it?
Oh, well, I mean, isn't it obvious? A show that emphasizes the importance of mentors in the ripple effect of one's life.
The ripple effect is really the important.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
So it changes the timeline.
So as far as the show is concerned, and just to preface this my thoughts on this episode, I am a massive Twilight Zone fan. And when I mean by massive Twilight Zone fan, massive 1959 to 1964 Twilight Zone. So I'm automatically going to kind of be
the Rod Serling joints.
Yeah, I'm a Rod Serling, Buck Houghton guy. I mean, that's my shit. So sitting here and looking at this, I'm going to give you the pro sides of the episode. One thing that Jordan Peele brings to this show, and based on what I've seen on one episode, it looks fantastic. It looks like a movie. The sets, the sets that he's chosen, the way that he shoots the outdoors when they're walking through the city, like the city has a big scope. It's huge. It's epic. You can tell that they're kind of like living in the hustle and bustle of a large city. I think the best shot in the show is when he erases the fiance's mentor and follows her to work, realizing that she works in a diner, and it's this long shot where the diner looks like massive, like it looks like it just goes into eternity. I think that's probably the best shot of the show.
Okay.
I think that that's what I have to say is good about the show. These are the problems that I have with the show. First of all, this show seems like it's going to suffer the problems of original Rod Serling Twilight Zone Season 4. They tried to expand the episodes to an hour, and they realized that it didn't work. So they actually trimmed those episodes back to 30 minutes. Because seasons 1 through 3 were only 30-minute episodes. Season 4 was 1-hour episodes.
Interestingly, 4 is not on Netflix right now.
Right.
That must be why.
If you want to borrow it, I have the complete set. I'll loan it to you. But they found that was kind of the errors of their way. Now, I understand modern television, an hour is kind of what they formulate to do the thing. I don't think it's necessary, honestly.
It's of the two I've seen, and what I think of the 3 that are out, I think it's the longest one, and I feel like that was a bad choice to make it the longest one.
I think that's
with
it.
Commercials.
Here's another problem that I have with the episode. The other issue that I have is very, very heavy-handed. It is extremely heavy-handed. This was obviously, and I hate getting political on this show, this was obviously a metaphor for Donald Trump, was this episode, obviously. I mean, that's what I got from it. The thing with it is that, and this is what keyed me off, and this is another thing I don't like about the episode. I mean, and like I said, I'm not getting into political leanings or any of that bullshit. I really don't give a fuck. But I mean, this is...
all I have to tell you is I didn't get that.
I didn't get that either.
This is why I got it. The reason I got it, and this is my other big problem, that all that shit aside, when he starts connecting with the audience, he's not funny. He's a fucking bitter asshole.
All right, so...
And that's my problem with it is I think that the thing would have had a lot more gravitas and it would have had a lot more... I think it would have been a lot more powerful if the character would have actually had funny comedy routines And
Yep.
as a result of those funny comedy routines, his life is falling apart to where he's sitting there.
That's right.
I have something that is giving me such joy. I'm joyful in my success. But the thing with it is that it is cutting out other things that are joyful of my life. The reason why I get the Trump thing from this is what does he do when he starts his comedian his routine, so to speak? He starts off talking about things that are important to him, that are meaningful to him. Mm-hmm. He's obviously a guy who is concerned about gun control, and he starts out his routine about the Second Amendment. Well, people are not communicating with that. He turns into a vitriolic fucking asshole, and everything he's saying is just ugly and horrible. And I think that it's a dig on the president. I think that's what it is, and that's what I pick. Because dude, look at Trump. Trump is a fucking dude. He's a fucking asshole. I mean, he's out there. He's saying all this fucking asshole shit. It's all a bunch of fucking limp dick machismo horse shit. Out there fucking, just spewing fucking vitriol and not saying anything of substance. And that's what I got from this episode. I think that it was, and I don't would say Trump. I would say that modern politics, especially social media style politics, basically what it comes down to is be a loud, obnoxious prick, because people feed in on that in social media. Zartome says it all the time on his show. You try to talk about something positive, you try to push something, people don't care about that shit. You turn into a fucking asshole, the ratings go through the roof.
Right.
And that's what I got from this episode. From multi levels of that. To me,
that I see. Yeah.
The Twilight Zone was a lot more fucking subtle than this. I found that this was very, very heavy-handed. And that was really why I didn't. Let me say another thing that I liked, actually. I really love the fact that the people who are producing this show, I love the fact that they care so much about the original, because I saw at least 3 Easter eggs that I saw just from the drop. I had to go look up the other ones.
In the first?
But I saw the first ones. The Easter eggs I saw is that when you look at the mural, when he joins the mural at the end, go back and watch it. There are people in the mural that are wearing the masks from the Voodoo episode in New Orleans where they have the mask. And there's also a couple of other people in the crowd that have the distorted faces from Eye of the Beholder.
Oh, no shit.
So they have those two.
That.
And another thing, too, is when you go in the dressing room, they actually hidden behind a lamp, and I caught it. They have the dummy from the Dummy episode in the dressing room. It's in there. Too. Yeah, so that's 3 Easter eggs that directly reference the original show.
They should have slipped Jack Nicholson into that shot too, because I thought of The Shining.
That's what I immediately thought of The Shining.
So that's my thoughts on the comedian. Yeah. What did you guys think about it?
I didn't think it was heavy-handed like you. I thought the basis of him was that he's a terrible comedian. And I kind of talked to John about this. I think that's the point, is that he's just a shitty comedian. Nobody gives a shit about his political bullshit. They just want to hear funny jokes. And then when he, quote-unquote, sells his soul to Tracy Morgan, he realizes that even his jokes aren't funny, but people are still buying into it. And I guess it kind of goes back to your social media thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was... I think it was done on purpose to show how shitty he actually is. And that it's just that simple to make somebody go away, as opposed to...
I think the thing with it is that's exactly. I mean, to roundhouse it, I think what it comes down to, dude, is that it's exactly it. It's a whole lot easier to be an ugly fucking dildo than it is to be principled.
Right. And the last thing I'll say, I thought it was good. It was definitely, I could see the Jordan Peele in it. I didn't think it was fantastic, although I did like the female comedian a lot. I thought she was hilarious. But the only thing that really, I liked how it messed with the timeline. As soon as people started disappearing, it messed with the timeline immediately. And that's, to me, that's important in one of those shows. Yeah. But when you get to the second one, which we'll talk about, you'll see.
So John, what's your feel on the comedian?
So I had 2 beefs with it. The first, same as you. The shit wasn't funny. And, like, back in the day, I used to have arguments with people that would say Eraserhead is a great film, and I was like, I thought it was fucking boring, and they're like, well, that's the whole idea. Life is boring, and I'm like, well,
fuck off.
I go to film to escape the boredom of life. Like I don't find they're requiring a lot of skill to do that. And in this case, I looked him up. Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah, right.
He's actually a comedian. And Key and Peele, like Jordan Peele is one half of Key and fucking Peele. I expect something funny. So if I'm going to go up and do a routine about Scott, I expect a joke like, he looks like Carrot Top fucked, Grizzly Adams or something. Instead of saying Scott Freelo, am I right? It seemed like his comedy routines were just like proxies that were supposed to be written in that they forgot to write about.
Two things that brings into mind with that, and you guys know better than me. There was a show that came on TV. It only lasted one season, and it was Bradley Whitford and Matthew Perry from
The
Friends.
Late Show, right?
And what it was is that they were supposed to
Saturday night.
They were supposed to be the guys who basically they were like top shelf comedy writers. And that was the critique of the show. The critique was, if you're making a show about guys who are top shelf comedy writers, the comedy writing has to be top shelf. So, I mean, that's the thing. The problem with it is that the subject matter that was covered in the show wasn't really that funny or good.
No, I loved that show. Like, I was heartbroken when they said, "Oh, that's it, canceled." I really, really did love that show.
They said it was a good
this
show.
This explains a lot.
Well, they said it was a good show, but they said it had its problems, and that was the biggest problem of the show.
I didn't mean that joke about you, by the way.
No, it's all right.
But if you look at it from the other side, look at Tenacious D with Jack Black and Kyle Gass. They write a song called Tribute, and it's about the greatest song that they ever wrote, but they can't remember it. So here's a tribute to the greatest song we ever wrote, and we can't remember the fucking thing.
I love that.
So that's awesome. I mean, I think that's the issue, is that, dude, if we're watching something about a stand-up comedian, especially from this guy and Jordan Peele, I agree
expect
with
more
you.
funny. And I don't feel like that's a big ask, especially if you're going to make it long, okay? The other issue I had with it, and important qualifier here, I lean liberal, okay? But the female comedian, she was of color and kept they went out of their way to make it absolutely clear to me that she was a lesbian, but it had zero bearing on any of the plot or the reality change. It just felt like it was...
You thought she was a lesbian?
I didn't. I didn't get that at all.
She literally said to the guy, she said, if I were straight...
She didn't say that at all. No, this is what she said. She said in the episode, I typically fuck Idris Elba. But if I wasn't looking for Idris Elba, I would fuck you based on just how funny you are.
No, she says it at the end. She does reveal that she's a lesbian.
Okay, all right. Does. And she also said Idris Elba is my exception.
Okay. Well, see, I misheard the line. So there you go.
Again, I didn't know till she fed it to me at the end. I had no idea.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just felt like it was unnecessarily fed to me, and I'm like, why don't you And before anyone says, are you homophobic? No, not at all. I just found it completely ancillary to the story. One of the best hours of science fiction I've ever watched is San Junipero on Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Which is all about not only, homophobe, but actually just, a realistic homosexual relationship with, ageist. It had all kinds of social wokeness to it.
In fact,
it was just beautiful.
But I don't even think San Junipero was anything that was really woke. I think what it is that it was two people that were just in love.
Exactly.
And none in their sex and their age and all that shit made no difference.
Exactly.
That's a classic example. And we're definitely going to circle back into Black Mirror in this episode. Yeah. But let's talk about the second episode. The second episode is called Nightmare at 30,000 feet,
which was great.
Which is a take on Nightmare at 20,000 feet. Now, this has been done twice, two versions. The first version was an original classic episode that features Bill Shatner, Captain Kirk, before he's Captain Kirk. Mm-hmm. And there's a goblin on the wing and nobody believes him, and it feeds into his paranoia and how it feeds onto the paranoia of being on an airplane. And it's really fucking awesome. The second is actually appears in the controversial Twilight Zone movie, which stars John Lithgow. I actually remember the John Lithgow episode
So do I.
from the movie
It was
better
great.
than I do the William Shatner one. And I've seen the William Shatner one a dozen times.
You know
but-
why? The finger wag.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly and the goblin or the gremlin in the John Lithgow one is
Scary.
Yeah.
scary. It is
Yeah.
legitimately scary. It's still scary from the with the practical makeup and all
yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
From what my understanding is, this episode has nothing to do with the gremlin at all.
No.
It
No.
just has to do with a lot of it has to do with prejudice, is from what I hear. What I read is I could be wrong. So you guys tackle that one, and I'll kind of moderate on this one.
It's a self-fulfilling destiny parable.
Exactly.
You know, like your anxiety will manifest something to be afraid of. Basically, this guy gets on a flight and they very elegantly establish that he had a mental breakdown in the past. And there's an MP3 player in front of him. And he sort of looks around uncomfortably, takes it out,
On
and
the
starts
plane.
on the plane and starts listening to it. And it's one of these, like, the mystery of the lost flight of 3330. And it's the
10-10.
flight, it's
Or
a flight
11-11,
that he's,
something
right,
like that.
11, yeah, whatever the date is.
10-10, I think.
Yeah. And it's one of these sort of like meta things where it's talking about, you know, the flight manifest, and he's recognizing the people they're talking about. And he's like, did someone put this here as a joke? Everyone's treating him like a weirdo, and he basically ramps up the anxiety and gets everyone else so freaked out that he essentially forces some, you know, turbulence, let's just say. I don't want to spoil it too much.
You don't?
No, just spoil it, man.
He ends up making the plane crash.
Oh, okay.
What happens is in the beginning he meets this guy, and we don't really know who this guy is. He bumps into him at a magazine stop, and he's like, "Oh, you're so and so. You're the writer," because he's a writer. Yeah, I'm in this magazine. Blah 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 blah. And they meet up. They end up taking the same plane, and there's glimpses of this guy. He kind of like, hey, you know, I'm having this weird thing. I'm listening to this weird podcast about a story about a plane that disappears, and the podcast is going in real time as the show, and ultimately this guy is the only one that believes him. You find out the guy was a pilot, used to be a pilot, can't be a pilot anymore because of just the shit he's seen flying. He just can't do it anymore. He's drinking on the plane. He's that guy. you
yeah,
know?
right.
But he believes that there's something going on with Adam Scott, who is the person. And so Adam Scott's, like John said, his anxiety keeps going
So
up.
the reversal is that Adam Scott is the gremlin in a way. He's the gremlin. And instead of something being on the outside of the wing that's tearing up the plane and causing paranoia. In other words, there's someone who is going through an anxiety attack that is causing overall angst on the entire flight.
The entire flight, and this guy who he initially thinks is an air marshal, then he says, no, I'm a pilot, and he says, I just, you know, and of course the plane staff are like, sir, you need to sit down, you need to calm the fuck down, shut up.
Similar to the the John Lithgow one kicks it in
Exactly.
the crazy gear. The William Shatner one, because I mean, people aren't rude, obnoxious bastards back in those days.
Same thing.
A lot
They
more
can smoke
decorum.
on the
Right.
plane.
So yeah, right.
Your paranoia is affecting the other passengers, right?
Right.
And then this guy's like, I believe you, I'll handle it. And then he goes up and busts into the cockpit and takes the plane down on purpose.
Oh wow.
So and you think that's the end, right? It's like, all right, I kind of saw that coming, and then the clouds clear, and much like Lost, you think he's the only survivor on an island.
You're missing it.
Huh? Okay,
He
go ahead.
crashes. You find him. He wakes up on the island, finds the MP3 player. Of course, it still works because it's the Twilight Zone.
You think he's the
Starts
only survivor.
listening, and the podcast is like, such and such. We find that all the survivors were found on a ship sailing off to whatever. They all lived.
They all got rescued from a remote island.
But no one could find whatever the character's name was, Adam Scott. No one could find him. He mysteriously disappears.
And all of a sudden people
End of
start
podcast.
people start emerging from the underbrush pissed off that he crashed the plane. He's like, "Wait, hang on." And then they essentially beat him to death.
Yeah, right.
And that's how it ends.
That's how it ends. Man, that to me was a much more rewarding episode. And when we were discussing whether or not we were going to do this podcast, Chris had said, "I'm not doing any. I just want to do the first episode, no more than 3." And I was like, "Well, you got to do more than one because it's what kind of show is it called?
It's an anthology.
An anthology show, and like it's hit or miss. And the first one, while I didn't like it, after I watched these 2 episodes, I started watching season 1 of Twilight Zone, the original, because I had not seen them all." And
it's a fucking great show.
Well, it's a great show, but there are good ones and bad ones, and and they investigate similar themes. Like, I feel like Jordan Peele's doing it right. I just think he started with the wrong one. So I'm excited about Twilight Zone. I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's very, very good.
One thing I like about the Jordan Peele thing, and even though I haven't seen this second episode, what you guys have told me about it, I like the fact that he is revisiting the classic episodes, but putting his own spin on it.
Exactly.
I do like that.
So,
instead of just remaking the John Lithgow, because the John Lithgow was basically just a modernized, more pressed on the accelerator version of the William Shatner, version of the story.
Well,
so,
when they crash, when you see all the luggage and you see him floating,
yeah, I saw
up,
the Gremlin
there's
doll.
the Gremlin doll.
Yeah,
correct.
which
Really?
what
Yeah.
child would
awesome.
own that? I mean,
There's also when in the beginning when
Maybe yours.
right.
when he meets that quote unquote pilot in the beginning at a magazine rack, he picks up his magazine, and then at the top, one of the magazines at the top is actually featuring the comedian from the first episode.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That was another thing I read. Also, they said in the first episode, the comedian, to go back to the Easter egg thing, the female comedian that Samir is in competition with, she's drinking beer, and if you look at the label and you look at the name of the beer, it's called like Kennebec beer or something. I don't know if that's what it's named, but the Kennebec is the alien race from the To Serve Man episode.
Oh.
So
wow.
yeah, these Jordan Peele and the producers, have put all kinds of love from the show, and like, I'm not shitting on it. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna get, but honestly, I'm gonna wait till it's done. I'm gonna get the subscription and then just binge everything.
Yeah,
Smart.
good call.
Yeah, that's how I'm going to do it. I mean, look, man, I love the Twilight Zone. I'm not shitting on the series and be like, oh, man, this is a horrible idea. But, I mean, I have to admit, man, in this streaming thing now being the new wave of entertainment, I got to admit, man, like, I look at stuff like we had talked about. I know, Scott, you didn't get into it, but Love, Death, and Robots. I mean, it's this generation's version of heavy metal. Just like Black Mirror is this generation's version of the Twilight Zone. And I mean, I love the Twilight Zone. I'll watch the Jordan Peele show. But I don't know, man. I mean, when it comes to the modern take, I just think Black Mirror is a better show. I think it connects better.
It's early yet, but I mean, Black Mirror is amazing.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with that totally, and I think Black Mirror is a better Twilight Zone than the Twilight Zone is in that sense. But I think I think that Black Mirror is for a different audience. I don't see everybody watching Black Mirror because I don't know that everybody would actually get it, or, I can't see everybody watching that pig episode and going, I'm watching this show.
And I agree with you. The thing with it, and that's the
Some
point.
of it's too close to home.
I think that's the point. I think that the Twilight Zone, with Black Mirror, first of all, let's call it for what it is. First of all, it's not as accessible. When you hear the Twilight Zone, my mother knows what the Twilight Zone is.
Correct.
Right.
My mother knows what to expect when
Right.
she watches the Twilight Zone. So, I mean, the thing with it is that with Black Mirror, like, my mother has no idea what that is. And I think people who are of an older generation, they don't know what it is. And I guarantee you, my mom's not going to watch the Pig Fucker episode either.
But I'll say this.
But it's for this generation.
I don't think this is your mother's Twilight Zone either. This new Twilight Zone coming
But
up.
let's look at for what it is. I've seen every episode of Black Mirror, and based on what I've seen in that comedian episode, the only thing that would make my mom uncomfortable about watching the comedian stuff with the Twilight Zone, she would actually be disappointed with the amount of cursing that's on the show.
Yeah.
but she's old school. That would be her. That she's like, well, I mean, dude, they're cursing. They never did that on the original show.
Right.
She's, I think the profanity is completely unnecessary. That's all my mom would really say.
How about the beating? Like they show them beat the hell out of Adam Scott at the end of that episode, which was to me was a little like that was unnerving to see that. Like, whoa, this took a weird turn.
I'd have to go on that, but I mean, look, just on the base level of it, I think the thing with it is with Twilight Zone, it's a lot more accessible as far as a property.
Correct.
It can be built a lot.
Namesake.
I mean, and look at all of it. Look, hey, Twilight Zone. This is not your father's Twilight Zone, but your father can watch it.
Yeah.
And it's directed by the guy Jordan Peele, who's like one of the hottest fucking directors in Hollywood right now.
And it's the same themes as the original show, so I think they'd connect with it more.
He does a beautiful sit-in for Rod Serling. I think
he does.
He's great.
He's great.
Another thing I'd like to compliment the show on also in the comedian, the music the music is perfect. It pays so much homage to the original.
It does.
It's really, really well done. So, I mean, like I said, man, that first episode I didn't like, but I'm not going to judge the entire series on that one episode. I'm really not.
You shouldn't.
know? So,
and the reason that the second one is important, not in an anthology sort of way, but it's important because it is sort of the polar opposite of what the first one is.
It is,
The second one is really...
in terms of, feel and
it
pacing.
feels like the first... because of the whole... it's on a plane. It's doing the same thing. They're taking a plane. It's definitely an homage, but I feel like that was important to see so that you go, oh, they're doing this thing. It's not just, this is kind of, I get you're trying to be whatever, but,
Well, if
that's
this,
legit.
If this show kicks off as well, and I don't know how many episodes are ordered in this first season, but I mean, depending on how far it goes, I'm sure it's going to be the standard cable. It'll probably be 10 to 13 episodes. If it's extremely well received,
10.
Oh, it is 10 episodes. If they basically say, look, 6 of the episodes are awesome and 4, even 5 and 5,
Yeah.
I'll probably buy it. I mean, I'll probably buy it. I mean, to give it a if I'm that into like Black Mirror. I mean, it's part of my Netflix package.
Right.
But I mean, if Netflix was to drop Black Mirror or anything like that, I would buy Black Mirror.
I would go find it.
So
I would go find it and buy it because
It's
I know
worth
I'm
it.
going to watch it multiple times. So, all right. Well, I mean, we got anything else to add on a Twilight Zone?
I would say that what really sold me on really getting excited about this was when I saw Us, the movie Us that Jordan Peele just put out. That feels like a long Twilight Zone movie.
Oh, does it?
It does. It's sort of the same. Take those 2 episodes and mix them together from what I could see so far. It's good. In that sense, I knew when I saw that, I said, this is the guy. He gets it.
And
even Get Out to an extent. Even though I didn't have in my head Twilight Zone when I saw Get Out, definitely on this one.
You know, it's so dumb. The reason I was like, I think it's in good hands is because he was approached. It wasn't his idea. Someone came to him and said, would you like to do the Twilight Zone? And he was like, I don't know. Those are enormous shoes you're asking me to fill. And then he said, but if you literally hear people saying that it feels like we're in the Twilight Zone right now because of what's going on just in general. And he said, based on that, I'm exploring those themes. I decided I'd take a shot. So I admired that.
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, I like the guy. He's extremely likable. You watch him in interviews. I mean, he's a smart guy. I'm really looking forward to this Cthulhu show he's doing on HBO.
What? I didn't know about that.
Yeah, Chad Lott talked about it on last time he was on the
he
show.
sure did. You're right.
Yeah, so I want to check that one out, and I mean, I want to see how much that differs between all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But 2 other quick little Easter eggs that I read about that I forgot to mention. Apparently, Jordan Peele's one of his most influential films that he loves is The Shining, so that's the reason why you got the mural at the end of the movie. And they said that it's going to happen in every episode. You just have to pay attention. The most influential director to ever come out of the Twilight Zone, the original series that he cut his teeth on, was Richard Donner. There is a reference to Donner in every episode.
No shit.
Yeah, in fact, I think the pilot in The Nightmare at 30,000 Feet, his last name was Donner on his name tag. But they said that that's going to be... It's also in the comedian. I just don't know where it is.
Okay. That was what I was going to ask. What's
but they said it's definitely there. And I was reading some critic, and he said the Donner reference is in every episode. So they're going to figure
Donner
a way
movie, maybe?
I think something is going to have the Richard Donner
okay.
name in it in some kind of way. They said that's going to be kind of a running gag in the series.
Why
so.
the hell not?
Right.
So it's pretty
support
cool.
it.
So yeah, I mean, so far I would probably say that we're I based on what I saw, I'm thumbs in the middle, pointing upward. You know, I'm excited to what's coming. So once I see the entire body of work, it's going to be impossible for me to not compare it to the original series because I've seen it so many times. But I appreciate it for what it is. That this guy, and I mean, it's in good hands. They got the right guy doing
Agreed.
it. So.
Agreed.
I was hoping to have a third one in, but they moved the drop dates from Mondays to Thursdays now. So
okay,
which is after we are recording this particular episode. So just look out for Thursdays now.
There you go. Yeah, if you're watching it. Yeah, I mean, you can go to CBS All Access. I think you can watch an episode. You can watch the comedian episode on YouTube for free. That's where I watched it. And then
when I signed up, I got both. I got the first 2 episodes for free.
Okay, gotcha.
Signed up.
All right, so there you go. So yeah, you can at least check out the comedian on YouTube and check that one out for free. And if you like what you see, then go ahead and sign up. I think it's only like $5 a month.
$5.99 for commercials, $9.99, I believe,
without,
and I have the without, and it's worth it.
All right, well there you go. All right, well anything to add? Any other stuff?
Negatory.
Nope.
All right, well, cool. Look, we invite you guys to jump over to our Facebook group. That's called PPV Guys Group. Ask for an invitation. We will approve you. Unless we think you're a fucking spam droid, we won't do that. But jump in the conversation, hang out, throw your opinion at us toward things.
I'll approve spam droids too. They don't know what they're in for.
Oh, well, then there you go. So, Scott, if you're a spam droid, the Ginger will gladly invite you into our group. So there you go. Also, you can subscribe to us at Popcorn, Piss, and Vinegar or PPV Guys over on iTunes. And also check out our YouTube link. We're there also. So, hey, man, appreciate you listening. End scene.